And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by, and welcome to the Optimizing Brownfields for Great Profitability webinar. During the presentation, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. If you would like to ask a question during the presentation, please use the chat feature located in the lower left corner of your screen. If you need to reach an operator at any time, please press *0. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded Thursday, July 11th, 2013. I would now like to turn the conference over to Mr. Eric Anderson with Modular Mining Systems. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. Greetings to our attendees. We appreciate your time today. We know it's important to you and are most appreciative. My name is indeed Eric Anderson, and I'm with the marketing team at Modular Mining Systems. I'll be running today's webinar and will provide a very brief company overview before I hand it over to today's speaker, who is, by the way, Andrew Cross. For those of you who don't know him, Andrew is Modular's Manager of Global Sales and has spent the last 10 years or so in sales and marketing of technology, heavy equipment, working with mining, aggregates, and construction companies throughout the world. Andrew also has an MBA from the University of Melbourne in Australia. Very quickly, a couple housekeeping items. First, I just want to remind everyone that the content of this webinar is copyrighted by Modular Mining Systems Incorporated. Secondly, and most importantly, I'd like to encourage you to please ask questions. If at any point during the presentation you have a question, just use the chat feature in the lower left corner of your screen, and we'll try to get to it before the end of the webinar. Some of the better questions we'll save and ask at the very end and share with the group. And by the way, I didn't mention this. If we don't get to your question, I promise you we'll get to it after the webinar concludes or within 24 hours. So a little bit about Modular Mining Systems. For those of you that don't know, Modular began in 1979 in Tucson, Arizona, by creating the world's first fleet management system, which I'm sure you've all heard of. It's called Dispatch. Since that time, we've grown into a global company with offices in each of the world's major mining markets, shown here in this slide. Part of our growth is associated with the expansion of our products and services, shown here. Over time, we've grown from a FMS software company to one that provides a full range of products and services for the mining industry that we collectively call IntelliMine. And as you can see in the graphic, IntelliMine spans the industry's major production segments: fleet management with our dispatch system, machine guidance with Provision, maintenance with MineCare, safety with MineAlert. Our sort of ancillary systems, if you will, network communications, support, and consulting services. And lastly, before I hand it off to Andrew, to be a market leader, you need customers. And at Modular, we feel very fortunate to have the trust of some of our industry's most innovative and successful companies. If you see your company on this slide, we'd like to thank you for your business. With that, I said I would be brief. I'd like to hand it over to Andrew Cross.
Thank you, Eric. So I guess I'll start off by asking the question, why Brownfields? Why did we choose this topic? And it's very topical these days. It seems to be coming up more and more frequently. You hear the CEOs of the major mining houses talking about focusing more on their brownfield operations than opening up new greenfields. And so clearly this is something the industry is heading to, especially in this current slump in ore values. So, you started thinking about brownfields and how are they really different than greenfields, and it's in a number of different ways. You have existing practices, existing habits, existing fleets. You really have to think of the mine as it exists today and tailor the implementation of a new technology to that existing mine. And so the biggest challenge it really creates is change management. And so you start thinking about, this new technology, this new process for existing, modular customers, adding a new feature or a new module. And as opposed to a greenfield operation where the operators haven't really operated there before, they're getting their instructions for the first time, operators in a brownfield operation are really used to the way things were. And so when you're putting in a new fleet management system, or you're adding a new module, or putting in a new any kind of technology, really, it's going through that change management process, evaluating the policies, the standards, the norms, and going through that re-education process on why this is important to the business. And really, and this is just kind of a basic philosophy here, is technology is only enabled when the workforce has buy-in. So when it comes to brownfield operations, we're jumping on a running treadmill. This is an operation that's already working, especially when you consider that change management piece. A good strategy for that is to focus on the quick wins. What part of implementing this technology is going to get you the fast paybacks, are going to really show the workforce that this is improving the operation, and really prove the point to senior management that this investment that you've decided to make really was correct and best for the business. So one of the quick wins that are inherent in a fleet management system like dispatch is utilizing the optimization algorithm. And I can actually even comment for existing dispatch customers, even going back in and having the dispatchers retrained on the maximum utilization of the algorithm will get you those quick wins. We've had large customers who see through training 1.5% increase in production on equivalent flat hauls just through retraining of the dispatchers. And these are major operations that have been using dispatch for many, many years. And so the question has to be, really, what is this optimization algorithm, this magic in the math? And it really is, it's basic mathematics. It's while very advanced, it's a very common off-the-shelf math. And the first part of that is BP, best path. And to think about best path is, as the system keeps track of your trucks as they go throughout the mine and builds this memory of the travel times between point A and point B, it's able to determine really what is the best travel path for the shortest cycle between point A and any point B in the mine. And this is a starting point, followed by LP, linear programming. And linear programming is a very fundamental mathematical concept, determining basically of these assets, of these shovels and sinks, as they're called in linear programming, but more think of them as dumps and crushers is what we typically call them. What is where's the need? Where's the need for more trucks? And this, in assistance with the best path, really starts to optimize your assignments. And then the third piece of that, the dynamic programming, DP, as we commonly call it, is that continual reassignment evaluation of trucks. So we don't just assume the second the truck is dumped and the algorithm says this is your next assignment. It's continually thinking, where's the best place to go next? And it may reassign you if the situation changes. And so these basic three mathematical algorithms we've seen through blind studies over the next year will be 35 years of utilization of dispatch. On average, 10% gains when implemented at a mine. So really, it's our recommendation, or our first starting point for optimizing a brownfield mine, rely on the optimization algorithm. So, focusing on this concept of quick wins, where's another place for quick wins? So while the optimization algorithm will focus on getting your production up, i.e. your revenue, if we're looking for quick wins that will affect profitability, another place to look is cost. And aux equipment is a quick place to look for cost. So working with a North American mining customer, we have developed a module that we're just releasing to the market this year called the Idle Monitor module. It was originally named the Fuel Saver, I believe, in the trials as we were working on it. And because that's what it does. It really does ensure that your aux fleet isn't sitting idle, it's being productive, it is working, and you're not just wasting fuel. And it does this by monitoring the equipment, make sure that it's working, make sure it's moving, and it sends these operators back, the operators automatic notifications to allow them to get back to work and reinforce the concept of not spending hours idle. Another module that we've had for a number of years and are improving with our latest releases as we try and improve everything is the aux task module. And this one's really quite clever. It takes the information from the operators as they're driving around. So if a truck operator reports excess dust or spillage, this information comes from the field hardware in that truck back in through Central and will automatically create tasks in the case of dust for a water truck to come around and suppress the dust, or in the case of a rock spillage to come in with the dozer, the grader, and clean up that spillage. And so these are two modules that focus on the cost and optimizing the cost involved with your aux fleet. And so these are really just kind of two quick wins that you can get in the IntelliMine suite that Eric was talking about earlier. And it really depends on really what your mine is facing and what different product that we think would best improve the situation. So, whether it's dispatch and the optimization algorithm, provision machine guidance, so if you have a situation where ore identification and maximizing the digging is an area where you see a quick win could happen, or mine care, maintenance management, say that your mine is facing a challenge where there just seems to be a mismatch between the availability and uptime that's expected from the fleet and what's actually happening is available. It really does quite a good job of taking the data from our over 135 interfaces and giving you the information and knowledge to know what's happening with the health of that machine so that you can start to do predictive maintenance, improve your maintenance practices so that you're getting more towards preventative maintenance rather than running to failure, as many mines have tendency to do. And lastly, the Mine Alert Safety Management Tool. If obviously we want every miner to come home safe every night, so this is a series of suite of tools that exist to address items like fatigue, collision avoidance, and all of these, depending on the unique situation at your mine, can either be implemented together or in standalone fashion to address the specific problems and get those quick wins. Within dispatch, I mentioned a few, aux task management and the optimization algorithm. But as you can imagine, with over 35 years of working with, next year will be 35 years working with customers, we've developed a number of different modules to address very specific problems and improve production at specific mines. So if downstream blending is an issue, if there are problems with optimizing brakes, if we're having issues with keeping track of the pre-start issues prior to starting up. All of these things over 225 installations, or nearing on 35 years, we've tried to look at and work with customers to really try and optimize their operations. So real quickly, I'm going to go through a couple real-life examples, and not really in-depth case studies, but give a couple examples of some of these quick wins that mines have seen. The first one is an example, one of my favorites, because it's very easy to sort of grasp the problem. But over time, this brownfield operation, the operators had come across this belief, this idea that the quickest way to dump your bed was to gun it, to go full RPMs on your bed lifts in the dump. And as many of you may know, the hydraulic systems in dump trucks require a certain level of RPM boost over idle to lift the bed, but you go beyond that limit, it's really not going to move that bed any faster. So using the MindCare system to keep track of the RPMs and the bed lifts, they were able to create this alert that went out to the operators and made them aware when they were doing this undesired behavior, this full RPM bed lift. And as you can imagine, they were saving just a ton of gas by not wasting it through the gunning the engines. Next example is another one that relied upon our interfaces to get some quick wins. This mine in particular was noticing an increased wear on their service brakes. So the maintenance department had this issue. They were not getting the full life expectancy of their service brakes. And what they realized was happening through the data from the interfaces was effectively the operators were relying on the service brakes, not the engine retard, to slow down the truck. You know, again, through the interface and monitoring what was happening here, they were able to identify it, create the alert, and that would go out to the operators, reminding them of the best practice of using the engine braking. This is an example, and I know actually some of you in the audience today have more intimate knowledge of this than I do, so I'll try and tell the story as best I can. But the mine in this case had set up a series of shacks throughout their mine, and what seems like a great idea on face of optimizing these brakes by having the shacks throughout the mine where they could just stop off, take their break without having to drive someplace to do so, really turned into a bit of a problem for them. And so what was happening was they were, perhaps taking too many breaks, perhaps driving to the shack to take the break. And really a haul truck is meant to move ore, and while it's a fun means of transportation, it's meant to transport ore, not the operator to his break spot. So I believe there are videos out there available of this, but they actually demolished these shacks in quite visual fashion. I'm going to give Eric, if you could play this next little video. I'm going to just go ahead and let it play, and you can sort of see what's happening here, if you can guess. So this is a very large brownfield operation that we've recently implemented our dispatch system on. And what this kind of looks like is the march of the elephants. It's end of shift, and as you can see, just all these trucks are coming in. So effectively what we identify was happening here, and again this is kind of goes back to that change management best practice. At the end of shift, let's say they were on a 15-minute cycle, instead of really optimizing those runs and that changeover of shift change so that it was staggered along the cycle, operators were basically slowing down and gaming that last cycle so that it magically ended right when their shift ended. So you would have a shift that would normally take 15 minutes. If the operator saw that he had a cycle that was going to take him 10 minutes, instead of him going that extra bit and getting in one more cycle, he basically slowed down, took 15 minutes on a cycle that should have only taken him 10 more minutes, so that he could finish up his shift right on time. And so what that leaves you with is a lot of shovels waiting for trucks, and just this whole motion of getting the trucks back running. Eric, show that video one more time. It's just, it really is amazing to watch them all come in. And again, while this is coming in, I encourage you to submit some chat questions. We've had a few come in, but this is nearing the end of our webinar, so if you have any questions, please get them in now. Eric, which question would you like to tackle first?
Yeah, there were a couple really good ones that came in. The first is, how is Brownfield change management different from Greenfield change management?
Yeah, so this is really one of the things we see, and when it comes to a Greenfield, and was looking at one we just recently worked on, you're able to go right in right away and put the full system in. You know, you can put in dispatch, you can put in provision, you can put in mine care, you can put in all the modules, and really just right from day one have the operators trained. This is the way we work. When it comes to a brownfield, it's almost better to kind of stage and stagger this out. So, you know, let's say this particular mine had an issue with fatigue. They had a lot of some operator accidents due to just the operators being tired. You know, it wouldn't be a good idea to put in multiple things at once. It would, you know, other than, you know, really address the optimization and add that one more thing, which is the fatigue management, so that you can identify that when operators are starting to fall asleep, and do the change management, get the best practices in there, and then move on to the other next quick win.
Thank you, Andrew. We, no surprise, we've got a question about the video. How would Modular address shift change issues like those in the video? Yeah, so this is a situation where you don't really want to go in and try and underthink this. So what we did here, and in fact this video was actually shot by Chris McKelman, our manager of mine services. And what we did was we went in, we evaluated the current state, we documented the process that was happening. We went in and we started with some, you know, dispatcher training, as well as looking at the policies of the mines themselves, such that shifts aren't on this kind of hard stop. You know, you know, it kind of reminds me, my grandmother likes to say, we eat lunch at noon. Well, your shift may not start at noon. You may stagger the shifts so that some start at right on the hour, some start 5-10 minutes later, some start 10 minutes after that. So it's staggered so that the shift change happens in such a way that the shovels are being fed with trucks as they can take them, and it happens in a smooth process right with the cycle of the hauling of ore. Great. Thank you very much. I think that's it for the questions we have. If any of you on the line have any additional questions that you couldn't get to during the webinar, please feel free to send them to products@mmsi.com, shown here on the screen. Once again, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate your time today, and we hope to see you again at our next webinar.
Thanks, guys.
And ladies and gentlemen, that does conclude the conference call for today. We thank you for your participation and ask that you please disconnect your line.